local town that you get in for the next 2 hours.
Yeah.
And it's just it's that constant. You stop kind of thinking about it just because you start focusing on the ex-cop or whatever. But it's always there because he sets in 20 minutes of that to just kind of let your brain stew in it as the story goes on. So it's just hard to ignore even if you're not thinking about it.
I immediately knew that I was watching something different when it was like giant font, Bhuta, 1995. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's a bunch of American hikers going on like a slave of the cannibal god, style trip where they find some skeleton of what looks like a xenomorph in a mountain where they drop down like in the descent or something.
Yep. Yeah.
And it has so many arms, and its hands are intertwined like it's in some sort of like almost like a Buddha position or something like that.
Yeah, and there's all these weird things that already happen right away. Like when the guy falls into this little crevice, which is where he finds the cave and the skeleton. But the moment that he falls into it, he stops talking to his friends, like he's not responding to them. So it's almost as if it implies that there's this instant connection to whatever is going on here when the empty man or whatever spirit is interacting with you. So that was cool too. It just kind of expresses its like power already, you know?
Yeah, well, and also I was impressed by just, the overall film has a lot of really nice, like kind of like low light digital filmmaking that clearly he kind of pulled a little bit from Fincher. It's got nice compositions, nice tracking shots and camera moves. It's very confidently directed for like a first movie like this.
Yes.
But also some of like the really creepy editing choices, like the little whispering sounds where it will cut and it will reveal the guy's mouth in her ear,
and it's like ASMR too, like the way the sound design is. It's that type of whispering that you can feel, like you can hear the little clappings of the lips coming together and stuff like that. Yeah, it's very good.
Or when they pull him from the cave and the man has now been sort of infected by the empty man, which we'll kind of we'll talk about more as we get into the film. But their friend, we don't know it yet because it's completely, we're seeing a lot of this for the first time without exposition. They bring him back into the sort of hut that they're staying in and everything like that, and like there's a giant wide shot that would normally be like a zoom in shot. It would be like that creepy, artful, slow zoom, like something we saw in St. Maud.
Right.
But instead, he does these hard smash cuts as it zooms in, being like doom, 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 like each one being cutting closer to the hut.
Yep.
As we're about to see, the one girl like sees a giant hooded figure in the snow who just starts like running towards her like he's the fucking Slender Man or something.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. Like they reminded me of certain other kind of urban legends that I have been familiar with. Like there's actually one called The Running Man, where he basically just like as you're walking down a street, you turn around and he's just standing there, and then he just keeps like kind of subtly following you until the point where you're just like, what are you doing? And then he walks back, and then as soon as you start walking forward again, he just bolts at you and then disappears. And like that's the whole thing. So when that happened and they were kind of doing that sequence, it reminded me of that. And there were a couple other ones that reminded me of certain urban legends that I've heard. I can't put my finger on it right now, but yeah, it seems like he's taken a few of them and kind of put it into one giant mythology, which is very cool.
Yeah, and it's very effective and very creepy. Like again, opening on a 20-minute like snow mountain, legend, mythological horror character who just takes over this group of friends, and also being really nasty with it. Like like when they eventually find him in like the middle of the mountain, and he basically like bodily controls the one girl to stab one of the friends over and over again, then slice the throat of the other one and push them off the cliff.
Yeah.
And the way that he directs just the movement of the stabs going into his back and then him falling off the cliff,
and the friends realizing
you really feel it.
What's going on. There's this great shot where the girl comes up to her after she stabs the guy multiple times, and she comes up to her and she just turns around really smoothly, slits her throat, and there's this 1 or 2 second shot of the friend just like realizing like, what are you doing? And then she just falls into the like off the cliff or whatever, and it's just so smartly done. And then it cuts to the guy that's going through like the connection with the empty man, and he just stares at her, and as she commits suicide involuntarily, but through this like spiritual connection, you see him have a tear run down his face, which kind of implies that like he can't do anything about it, but he's still there, and it's fucking terrifying. Oh man.
Yeah, it's really one hell of an opening, and credit, I think, to him. Like, it takes kind of a long time into the movie before we start to even like you're kind of like, how is any of this connected to the opening sequence? For like a really long time in this movie. He's really patient with like his reveals, because I have to say, like, normally something like this would like, I would feel like it's so long, like, please get to the point. But for some reason, watching this film, it did not feel like waiting for me. I didn't feel like I was like, we need to get somewhere, or you need to get to the point faster. It felt like that unbearable sense that like something is wrong and that you're headed somewhere.
Yes.
Feels like part of the character's journey. Especially when we get into some of the reveals in the climax, which we will get to, but like that's very much what the character is experiencing as well. So the way that I feel like he has a good argument for the length being an important part of what makes you actually feel this movie.
And I think that like for me, the confirmation